So many of us are experiencing spiritual awakenings right now where we feel like our lives are turning upside down and inside out. And as wonderful as a spiritual awakening can be, it can also be tremendously difficult at times to live through. In this video, I'm going to define what spiritual awakening means and give you a broader picture of what an awakening looks like. And I'm also going to share some of the biggest challenges that I faced in my own awakening to help you navigate your process. I'll see you in a bit. Hello, beautiful soul. It's good to see you. This is Christina Lopes, the Heart Alchemist, welcoming you to another one of my weekly videos. In this video, I'm going to be talking about spiritual awakenings, what they are, what the broader picture of the spiritual awakening is, and I'm also going to share some of the main challenges that I faced in my own awakening. I'm putting out another sequel to this video, so it's going to be 2 video series. I'm going to put out another video that it's going to be about giving some major lessons that you can then that will then help you moving forward with your spiritual awakening. But in this first video, I don't want it to get too long, so I'm going to divide it into a series. So stay tuned for part 2 of this video on spiritual awakenings. But let's get started with this first one. So first things first, let's define spiritual awakening as I see it before we move on to the second part of the video. So what is a spiritual awakening? In my experience, the simplest way to talk about spiritual awakening is just to say that an awakening is when you become aware of something deeper in your life. All right? There's a deeper meaning in your life. Now, this can happen through, I don't know, usually in most of our lives, it happens through some kind of sudden event or some kind of dramatic event that wakes us up to something different in life. It could be a car accident, or, you know, something happens, your relationships fall apart. For me, it was my marriage disintegrated suddenly without me expecting it. So it was this sudden event that was so jarring that it kind of activated my spiritual awakening. It could be, for some people, it could be they meet a very powerful soulmate or a twin flame that activates their spiritual awakening. Whatever the event is, a spiritual awakening just simply means, however it started doesn't matter, but what it means is that you become aware of something deeper. As you're going through the spiritual awakening process, there is a statement that starts to play out. Whether you know that consciously or not, it's playing out in you. And this is the statement. The statement is this: you come to a point in your life where you start thinking, subconsciously or consciously, this: there must be something more than this. There must be something more than this. All right? As soon as you start thinking about this consciously or subconsciously, that's what I call a triggering awakening. Okay? The trigger of the awakening. Now, eventually, we can start talking about it on a more deeper sense, what an awakening means on a deeper sense. As you start becoming aware of the deeper meaning of life, of the underpinnings of life, you become connected to what some call God or source energy. You become connected with everything around you. You experience what spiritual teachers talk about when they say that everything is oneness, the oneness of life. You start actually experiencing this individually, where before you didn't even know what the heck these teachers were saying. All right? So you start to experience the connection of life. Eventually, spiritual awakening means that you are going to come face to face with your own divinity. I love that definition of spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening is when I come face to face with my own divinity. Now, at this point, you may be saying, that sounds great, you know, sign me up. What's the problem? And you're right, there is no problem. I actually wish a spiritual awakening on everyone on this planet because I think it's the best thing that could ever happen to you. But there's a flip side to that, all right? There's always a flip side to everything. So when the spiritual awakening process occurs, when it starts, when it activates, and you come face to face with your own divinity, when you come face to face with that divinity, really it's light, when you come face to face with that intensity of light, you automatically are forced to shed all of the bullshit that you've been telling yourself and others. You're forced to shed all of the lies, all of the masks that you've put on, that you've presented yourself in the world with. You have to shed everything. You have to shed your childhood wounds. You have to shed everything that everyone has ever done to you and what you've done to them. You have to shed all of your judgments that you have towards yourself and towards others. You have to shed all of your emotional baggage. So coming face to face with this intensity of light requires you to shed everything that is untrue about you, everything that has blocked you in life up until now. And it's this shedding process that can be tremendously difficult to navigate at times, okay? So there's the broader definition of a spiritual awakening. Eventually, what the spiritual awakening process is doing is that it is bringing you closer and closer and closer, all parts of you, to a connection, a unison, a wholeness. So at some point, as you're coming face to face with your divinity, face to face with your light, and you're dealing with all of the parts of you that you have rejected, that you have ignored, that you didn't want to look at, that you thought were resolved, as you come face to face with what psychologist Carl Jung called the shadow, and the shadow doesn't mean that you're a bad person or is a bad part of you. The shadow is just the parts of us that we disown, the parts of us that we don't like, the parts of us that we reject, that we don't see, the parts of us that we didn't even know existed that were in us. So that's what Carl Jung called the shadow. And in the awakening process, that shadow is brought to the light also. Eventually, what the spiritual awakening process does is it brings you into a state of union, of wholeness, so you're not fragmented anymore. And when you step forward in life from a position of wholeness, you're so much more powerful, you're filled with joy, you're radiating energy, and that's how you help change the world, by changing yourself, and then you change the world, and life becomes miraculous. Okay? So that's kind of the overarching theme. It's what's going on behind the scenes as you're going through a spiritual awakening. That's what a spiritual awakening is and why it happens to you, okay? So now let's go into some of the challenges. Now, I want to have a little disclaimer here before I get into some of the challenges, because I don't want to scare you, okay? So I'm going to share with you some of the biggest challenges that I've had in my own awakening process. It doesn't mean that your awakening is going to be exactly the same and it's going to be just as hard. With people that are here on this planet that have certain missions, people that are here that are healers, people that are the teachers, people that are here to be way showers for others, that are here to be light bearers for others, those people generally have spiritual awakenings that are more difficult. Shamanic culture calls them initiations. So in shamanic culture, when you want to become a shaman, you have to spend years in this initiation process that's very difficult at times before you can become a shaman. And I consider myself a modern shaman. So anyone that has a type of mission like mine, a healing mission, a teaching mission, the spiritual awakening process will more likely than not be difficult. And there's a reason for that. It's part of the process. That's what makes you a better teacher, a better healer, is when you actually go through all of this stuff that then you help others heal. So that's why I wouldn't give up my spiritual awakening for anything, because it's made me the teacher that I am today. Everything that I share with you, all of these experiences that I share with you, I am a teacher from experience, not from theories, okay? So the disclaimer is that these things may or may not happen to you. You may or may not have the same intensity of an awakening. But more likely than not, if you're watching my videos and if you resonate with my energy and you resonate with my teachings, more likely than not, we're in energetic resonance. And so you may be also a healer or a teacher or have some kind of healing mission. And so your spiritual awakening may be a bit difficult. But that's all right. That's why I'm putting out these videos, so that I can help you. You can learn from my own struggles, from my mistakes, because I'm human like everyone else. You can learn from my own mistakes and from my struggles, so that your spiritual awakening doesn't have to be as hard as mine. All right? So there's the disclaimer before I start sharing some of my biggest challenges. Okay, so let's get to it. So I had moments where I've had relationships fall apart on me from one day to the next, where my heart was just, shattered in a million pieces, and I was left in so much pain because of the sudden loss of these relationships. I've had to start over more than once, where I only had a few dollars in my bank account, and I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills, or I didn't know how I was even going to fulfill my dreams. I've had to sustain a lot of physical symptoms. So I've had such severe physical symptoms that at one point my family wanted to take me to the hospital because they thought I was really sick. I've had such severe physical pain that at points I was bedridden. I couldn't get out of bed. And I've had points in my life where I was literally in bed and I'd be staring at the ceiling and I would just ask God to please take me because I didn't want to live anymore. I reached points where my resilience was tested, my strength was tested. And there were moments when I just said, please, just please take me. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't take this anymore. So there were those moments. There were moments when I thought I was going insane. If you don't know much about my past, I come from a clinical background. I was a clinician for over 10 years. And when a clinician has a spiritual awakening, that can be very dramatic, because my clinical mind was constantly telling me I was either dying or I was going insane and I would have to be institutionalized. Because as I started to receive spiritual guidance that was very clear, as I started to receive that guidance, my clinical mind would say, you're hallucinating, you probably are schizophrenic, you're going to go insane, you're going to be institutionalized. So I laugh at this now, but imagine at the moment trying to stay balanced and at peace when your mind is telling you you're going insane. It was really painful for me. It was a very, very painful phase in my spiritual awakening. I had moments in my spiritual awakening where I was guided to move to different places. I spent 4 years almost living a hermit life. I was guided to move to different places. I didn't know anyone. I was alone. I would go weeks on end without speaking to another human being. And I spend most of my days in the forest or outdoors, immersed in nature. So that happened. There were moments where I would just literally sit on the ground in the darkness of my house, and I would just feel this deep despair and loneliness because I had no one around me that understood what I was going through, that understood the depths of what was happening to me. I went through that. There were moments when I was just so tired. I was so tired. I didn't want to do this anymore. There were moments where my strength was really tested, and I'm a very resilient being. But even for me, the path of the last 6 years has been difficult at times. All right. So there are some of the challenges that I've gone through. There are many more, but I don't want to bore you. I just want to give you a kind of look into what the flip side of a spiritual awakening can be. But again, I wouldn't exchange it for anything, because yes, I've gone through these challenges. Yes, I thought I may die, or I thought I was going insane at one point, or I went through tremendous pain and tremendous lows, but I've also been through tremendous highs. I have never experienced love like I experience it now. I didn't know the power of my heart as I know it now. I'm alive now. I wasn't alive before. I lived like a zombie before. And now I'm alive. I am so thankful to be on this planet. I wake up every day with deep love in my heart for myself and for others and for everything, really. There is nothing in this world that I would exchange for this that I have now, for this feeling of being alive, of being loved, and of being God source in a body. There's nothing I would give up for that. So it's not just lows. There are lows and there are highs. The challenges can be very big, especially if you have a healing mission. Your awakening can have very, very difficult moments. But at the end of the day, you're watching this video, you've heard some of the difficulties that I've gone through, and now listen to my voice as I'm saying this to you. If you're watching this video because you're going through a really deep low where you feel desperation or despair or loneliness, or you feel like you're alone and no one loves you, whatever you're going through right now, Remember, things are going to get better. You are a resilient soul. Your soul knows what it's doing. You are never going through anything that you don't have the capacity to go through, all right? So please hold my love in your heart. I love you. I am with you constantly. I'm here on this side, but I'm constantly with you. I'm constantly sending you my love. There are highs and there are lows to spiritual awakening, but never forget, at the end of the day, it's all worth it, even if you can't see that right now. All right, so there's video number 1 on the spiritual awakening. On the second one, I'm going to talk about some of the essential lessons that I've learned along the way, and that'll help you a lot too. But for now, I'm leaving this video where it is right now. Head over to my website to comment or to continue the conversation. You'll find a link below this video for my website, for the direct link to my blog. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see right here, the link is going to pop up right here on the screen. Go over to my website, comment there. I like to have conversations on my website. I like to have everyone come into my website. You'll also, on my website, you'll find lots of resources. I have dozens of videos out. I have dozens of resources that will help you in your awakening process. I love you, beautiful heart. You're doing well. Everything is okay. See you soon.